Alternate endings are nothing new to video games. RPGs have them all the time, like Chrono Trigger for example. Bad endings aren't unusual either, but arcade games back in the day usually only had one ending, if they even had one in the first place. But one company decided to have a secret bad ending of sorts that doesn't even give you an actual ending. That's exactly what Konami did with the original Salamander. So let's jump right into it. So Salamander is better known as Life Force in North America, and is known mostly for including horizontal and vertical scrolling stages in the same game, and being a spin-off of the Gradius series. But what a lot of players may not realize is that there is a way to finish the first loop without the ending screen. So what do you have to do to make this happen? It's not very hard actually, but you need enough lives. In the last stage of the first loop, you need to complete the stage without beating the last boss near the end of it. So what you do is, you crash into him, and if you have an extra life left, you'll use the invulnerability frames to get behind him, and the game will then proceed with the escape sequence. Once you get through the difficult escape sequence, you fly out of the base, and you expect the ending screen with the base blowing up as you're flying away, but no, that's not what you get. You instead get warped back to stage 2. You won't have much power, so you probably won't make it further than that, likely depriving you of the 1cc. On the surface, this might make sense because one can make a legitimate argument that if you didn't beat the last boss, you don't deserve to see the ending, right? Well, here's the problem. You are likely to get into this scenario because of poor level design. In order to beat this final boss, you need the missiles. It is the only way to kill him. As long as you have the missiles, the last boss is so easy it's a joke. But the problem is that you only get missile pickups at the very beginning of that stage and halfway through it before you enter a base. So if you die just once after you enter the base, which is easy to do because it's probably one of the harder sections of the game, you're screwed. You could have a perfect run up to that point, but one screw up right before that last boss can ruin an entire run, forcing you into a situation where you cannot see the ending and get the real 1cc. Ironically, this is one example of how this game ends up with Gradius syndrome even though the game lacks checkpoints. This scenario is exactly what happened to me. I was having a perfect run until I got to the second half of the final stage and catastrophe struck. I didn't have the missiles, so once I got to that boss fight, I had no choice but to intentionally suicide in order to get behind him and then try to finish the rest of the stage, which I somehow did despite not having any speed pickups for the escape sequence. Needless to say, I was shocked whenever I didn't get the ending and instead got sent back to stage 2 instead of moving on to loop 2. Since I was powered down by that point, I ended up hitting the point of game over by the stage 2 boss. Now eventually I did get my 1cc of the first loop in another run after several more attempts. But I still never forgot this experience because I kind of got screwed over by the game itself. Sure, if I wouldn't have died right before the last boss, this wouldn't have happened. But it definitely left a bad taste in my mouth. Konami would learn from this game with Salamander 2 by having that game end with a proper boss fight at the end of the last stage of each loop. They even give players a chance to power up a bit at the beginning of the fight, so if you died right before that, you get a chance to recover. And while bad endings are a thing in some other shmups like Gun Frontier, it is typically a result of you failing to beat the final boss before running out of lives, not because of questionable game design choices. But anyways, let me know if you have run into this issue before in Salamander, or a similar scenario in another game, I would love to hear from you. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.